Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner at 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right. And a big round of applause for them and everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates, whether it's CBS, NBC, Fox, Independence, everybody also watching on television. Thanks for joining us on all of our select cable operators, as well as those on Hotel TV, plus those streaming on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Make sure you check that out, folks. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. So, there's a lot happening in college football, as you know. Actually, the world of sports. Lots and lots happening. But a couple of interesting things happened in our last episodes of college football, which certainly moved some teams up the rankings. And now we're going to focus on the Associated Press, because the Associated Press rankings are really where we need to really start. That's the AP Top 25. And you ask yourself, who moved up, who didn't, why didn't they, etc. So let's do this. Let's start at number 25 and work our way up the rankings, and you'll see why right at the very beginning at number 25 is Washington State. Washington State dropped 6 slots with their loss to New Mexico. Yes, to their loss to New Mexico. Yeah, I mean, that in itself it's pretty embarrassing, but then again, it's the Pac-2. Look at it that way, folks. Number 24, Illinois, stays number 24. They did not move, even though they had a nice win. More than doubled up Michigan State at Michigan State. UNLV stays at 23rd, actually go to 23rd. With their win against San Diego State, it's not the usual San Diego State that we would typically see. And of course, coming up for them is going to be San Jose State. And that is where the buck stops for the UNLV. Iowa State, number 22. An easy win. They double up Cincinnati 34-17. And of course, their next game is against Utah. Now, that's not the same Utah team that we have been accustomed to as far as the wins and losses go. So a very winnable game by Iowa State. They very well could go to 9-2 on the season. Arizona State with a shocking win against Kansas State. But I can't figure out that Kansas State team. Every time I want to say they're really good, they lay an egg. And something bad happens and they let Arizona State beat them. But then again, Arizona State, they're 8-2, so they're really not a bad squad. So actually, maybe it is a quality win, or better yet, even a quality loss for Kansas State. I'm not really sure, but up next for them is going to be a very angry Brigham Young team who lost in their last game. We're going to get to that in a moment. Number 20, Tulane. They jumped up 5 slots, of course, with their shutout against the Naval Academy, 35-0. That's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, they've got Memphis coming up in a couple of weeks. So they get a break before they have to play the Memphis Tigers. The University of South Carolina, the original USC, with 444 votes, they jumped up 4 slots to number 19 with their win at Missouri. Another shocking win. And I'm really stunned. I don't even know what to make of this Missouri squad, because every time I think, just like Kansas State, I put Missouri, that would be a great game, Missouri and Kansas State. But anyway, in this particular case, it was Missouri losing in the last moments of the game to South Carolina, 34-30, in a wild game. And unfortunately for Missouri, they have seen better days, and just when you thought they were good enough to really compete in the SEC, well, it's the old, they are who we thought they were. It's one of those kind of situations. Army, albeit winning 14-3, drops 2 slots. That was in their prior game. And of course, they dropped 2 slots and they didn't even do anything. Next week, they got to play Notre Dame. And we'll see just how good the Cadets are against Notre Dame. And those guys are ranked number 6, and we're going to get to them in a minute. But Army is one of those clubs that could actually shock Notre Dame. So we'll see how that one plays out. Clemson, number 17, with a win, and that was kind of like what you would expect with West Virginia and Pitt with the backyard brawl. But it was Clemson and Pitt, 24-20 Clemson, in a very tough game. If you watched any of that, you'd know what I'm talking about. A very physical, in-your-face kind of game. Exactly what you'd expect, but this was kind of like a fight in the backyard. It was a fight in the alley or something like that. That's how that game was won, and of course, that was a very good game as far as Clemson goes. In fact, those guys certainly deserve a round of applause. Colorado is playing better ball, but again, look, they won 49-24 against Utah, but it's not the same Utah team, folks, that we've seen over and above. And those guys, being Colorado, haven't really played anybody, in my opinion, that is of substantial value and stature. Yes, they have a lofty 8-2 record. Maybe Deion's actually coaching now instead of doing a whole bunch of commercials. Who knows? He's always on TV. But those guys are much improved over in Boulder. They move up 2 slots to number 16. Up next for them is a very pesky Kansas team. We'll get to them in a minute as well. Texas A&M, easy win over New Mexico State, 38-3. No issues there whatsoever. Up next for Texas A&M is Auburn. And we'll see if War Eagle can do something over there against Texas A&M. Brigham Young dropped 7 slots with their loss to Kansas. They dropped all the way down to number 14. I'm not really sure how they only dropped to number 14 because Kansas, well, they're not ranked. And they're a decent squad, but then again, I'm not really sure why Brigham Young was even that high in the first place because the week previous, they were given a gift win. Nonetheless, up next for them, being the Brigham Young Cougars, is going to be Arizona State. SMU jumps up 1 slot to number 13. They're now 9-1, and they're doing very, very well since their transition to the ACC with an easy win over Boston College. Up next is Doormat Central against Virginia. Boise State jumps up a slot to number 10 or number 12. How about Boise State? No one's talking about Boise State except I am right now. They doubled up San Jose State, a very good San Jose State squad. Up next for Boise State is a road game over at Wyoming, and Wyoming is no joke when they play at home. You know, when they're on the road, they don't play so well, but Ashton Jeanty is trying to get himself a serious spot in the Heisman race, and I think right now he's probably the leader in the Heisman race, but he's going to have to battle, I guess, Ewers in Texas. He's going to have Dylan Gabriel on his back and a kid from Colorado that plays offense and defense. And right now, apparently the kid from Colorado, I think his name is Walters or something to that effect. Anyway, he is allegedly, according to some, the front runner in the Heisman voting. But right now, I think Ashton Jeanty should be the guy. But then again, I don't get a vote, so it doesn't matter. Now, Miami jumped up 1 slot to number 11. And their one slot, I wouldn't say is a questionable one slot because they really did not look very good in their prior game. And let's face it, that was basically sitting idle with their loss from the previous week to Georgia Tech. Those guys still got up one spot to number 11. Up next for them is Wake Forest, an easy win. Tennessee is reeling from their loss to Georgia at Georgia. And I watched that game, and I don't know, folks, it looked to me like Tennessee was winning the game the entire game. Somehow they end up losing by 2 touchdowns. And it was sort of a conundrum. Tennessee is still in the top 10, but they dropped 4 slots. But the Georgia game, it really looked as if Tennessee was controlling the tempo of the game, and it's hard to put your finger on. So if you watch it, you know what I'm talking about. But Tennessee drops to 8-2 overall, and it's hard to imagine even a top 10 team with 2 losses. Oh, by the way, there are 1, 2, 3 ahead of them that also have 2 losses as well. We're going to get to those when we come back from break here on the Sports Circus. But folks, some of these games you scratch your head and say, well, how the hell did that game end up the way it did? I don't even know. I'm watching the tempo controlled by Tennessee. Quarterback was poised. The defense was good enough, but apparently, according to the score, they weren't. But ultimately, you have some question marks with that Tennessee squad. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC Sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935, or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you can use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at Uppercut Chops. USDAprime.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Yes! All right, a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates. Big hello to our friends over in Atlanta, Georgia on WDJY 99.1 FM and over in Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, that's home of the Atlanta Braves. And big hello to our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA, that's home of the Yankees, the 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus all of our independents up and down the East and West Coast and the Heartland, as well as a big hello to everybody on television, watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, and WOW Cable Television affiliates in select markets, Hotel TV, and those watching on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Now back to the top 25. We left off at Tennessee. It's sort of a conundrum in that game, and I really don't even know what to make of it, but then again, I'm just going to leave it there. Tennessee looked a hell of a lot better than losing 31-17, but then again, I wasn't there on the field, so I don't know. Ole Miss goes up one slot. They remain idle with their win. I guess it's the after effect from their win against Georgia, 28-10 in the prior week. Up next for them is a pesky Florida team who knocked off LSU. We're going to get to that again in a minute. Georgia, as we had just mentioned, the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs, they jump up 3 slots with that win against Tennessee at home. They move to 8-2, yet another 8-2 team in the top 10, which is sort of a conundrum, but then again, we'll get to that in a minute, if you know what I mean. Anyway, it was Georgia moving up to number 8. Alabama moved up 2 slots, another 2-loss team with their win over hapless Mercer, 52-7. Notre Dame goes to number 6. They jump up 2 slots to number 6 with their win against a very poorly equipped Virginia team. Up next for Notre Dame is going to be the Cadets of Army. Now we'll just find out how good Notre Dame is in that game, because the whole world knows Army is going to do what? Army is going to run the ball. This is what Army seems to do week in and week out. It's just what they do. And the whole world knows what's coming. Now look, Army, in the rankings of how many times they pass or where they stand versus rushing and so forth, Army is 273rd in the nation in passing yards. They're only passing 85 yards a game. They have no real interest in doing that. It's not even keeping the rushing honest, but the reality is the Army Black Knights are first in the nation in rushing at 334.9 yards, rushing yards per game. So if you're at the bottom in one, you're at the top of the other. That still puts Army, remember this is the undefeated 9-0 Army. They're 65th in the nation in total yards. They're still getting 419.9 yards per game. And Army's points for, look, they've scored 317 yards, or 317 points scored. They've only given up 93. So if Notre Dame thinks that they're going to have a cakewalk against the Black Knights, I got bad news for them, because when you look at what those guys have done, Notre Dame is 170th in passing yards. So basically, they run the ball a lot too. They're 170th in passing yards, and they're 19th in rushing yards. Whereas Army is 273rd in passing. They're passing for 100 less yards a game, but they're also rushing for over 100 yards more per game. And remember the stats I just gave you about Army only giving up 93. Well, these guys, being Notre Dame, they've given up 114 points versus Army's 93, and they both scored about the same amount of points. Something tells me that Army is going to give Notre Dame a lot of fits in this game that's coming up, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Army beat those guys in South Bend. I mean, all the signs point to there's a real possibility of an upset. I'd like to see it. Absolutely. Now, above them, in-state rival is Indiana. Indiana did not play. They did not move up or down in the Associated Press Top 25. They remain at 10-0. Up next for those guys is Ohio State. And Indiana has a legitimate shot to beat those guys in South Bend, or I'm sorry, not in South Bend, in Columbus, Ohio. Indiana doesn't worry about the score. They don't scoreboard watch. They just go about their business. They're very, very well coached. And it's, again, I say this every week. It's difficult for me to say it because I went to the arch rival of Indiana. That would be Purdue. Of course, my Boilermakers are just awful. We're going to get to them in a second. But Indiana is a very well coached, very well disciplined club. These guys know what they're doing. They're ranked number 5 in the AP Top 25 for a very good reason. And what's kind of interesting is you see 4 of the top 5 schools in the AP Top 25, they're all Big Ten schools. That's right. Yes! So, above Indiana, number 4 is Penn State with their bludgeoning of my beloved Purdue Boilermakers in West Lafayette, 49-10, which is exactly what Penn State is supposed to do. You got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. Up next for them is Minnesota. It'll be at Minnesota. Now, you never know what you're going to get up there. And PJ Fleck's got his Minnesota Golden Gophers playing when it counts the most. So Penn State should not be looking past Minnesota in that upcoming game. Number 3, Texas, didn't really have too terribly much trouble with Arkansas. Now, Arkansas is a very tough draw. However, it just seemed as though Arkansas didn't really show up much. But then again, maybe offensively, that is. Defensively, they held Texas to 20 points. So Arkansas is sort of a question mark. And no, they're not in the top 25. But they're a very good squad week in and week out. And so, again, you don't really know what you're getting with them, but they're going to give you a big effort every week. So Texas did play a pretty good team. And, well, they doubled them up, 20-10. Up next for Texas is a very pesky foe in the Southeast Conference, and that would be Kentucky. But that game will be in Austin, so Texas will certainly have the upper hand. Now, Ohio State stays the same with their win against Northwestern at Wrigley Field, 31-7. Of course, they did not cover the spread, which was 28.5. But Ohio State will have their hands full when they play Indiana at home. And that's going to be a 9 a.m. Pacific time start. For all you people that want to watch good football, watch this game, and you'll find out just how good Indiana is and maybe how questionable Ohio State is. Now, speaking of questionable, this was a kind of a fun game. And everybody had asked me about this Oregon-Wisconsin game. And I said, folks, if you've never been to Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin, it is one of college football's better venues. The people are very nice there, but is a very tough place to play. Now, Oregon, they may have played there one other time in the past. I don't even know. But Oregon got a heavy dose, despite the records, what Big Ten football really is in their games against Ohio State and Oregon when they played Wisconsin. Playing at Wisconsin was no picnic. And of course, the food is good, of course, if you want good brats and whatnot, because that's the kind of thing you get up there. And some great hospitality, of course, at Wisconsin. But it took Oregon till the very end of that game to somehow pull out a 16-13 win against the Badgers of Wisconsin. And folks, again, Wisconsin is not a ranked team, but when any team, except unfortunately Purdue these days, if you know what I mean, those guys aren't very good, but they do own Big Ten basketball, so thank God basketball is there for the Purdue Boilermakers. Anyway, when these teams in the Big Ten play, I mean, all kidding aside, any team could beat any team. Seriously, it's just that way. I mean, look at Rutgers. They were the doormat for years and years and years, and Rutgers turned everything around. And now Rutgers is a formidable opponent for whoever plays them, whether at home or on the road. So Oregon got two very close games against Wisconsin and Ohio State. So Oregon is a legitimate number one. However, if Indiana beats Ohio State, Indiana should be given all the consideration to take over that number one slot. And folks, I don't think I've ever seen Indiana as the number one team in college football. In basketball, yes. College football, no. Back here in a few minutes on the Sports Circus, we're going to shift out of college football and head into something else. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
on broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, make sure to check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. It's free. It's a fun group. Post your favorite recipes, your favorite restaurants, all the things that you like, and maybe some things that you don't like, but then again, try to keep it positive. That's Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, and tell them the circus sent you. Yes! All right, and a big welcome back to everybody listening in on TV and radio, watching on TV and listening in on radio. Also, a big welcome back to everybody that is on our streaming platforms, just like Chicago Food Favorites, everybody on YouTube and Amazon and Audible and all those. Oh, geez, there's all kinds of them. Anyway, make sure that you also check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which are a podcast. No, we don't do a podcast, but just make sure you check out all those recorded shows. There's about 2,100 of them on the platforms, and there's months and months of nonstop action. If you want to listen in, just go grab yourself, I don't know, a super tanker of your favorite beverage and a pillow, and lean back and listen and have some laughs with us here at the circus as well. All right, shifting into the National Football League. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but I watched some of these games and I scratched my head and say, wait a minute. The Bears were winning most of the game against Green Bay and somehow, in their infinite wisdom, found a way to lose the game. And unfortunately, this is something that happens on a somewhat regular basis if you are a Chicago Bears fan. And it's a little disheartening, especially when you have the oldest rivalry in professional sports and you got them in the bag and somehow you let them out. And even the coach, Matt Eberflus, he believes that he's going to file a complaint with the NFL that the Packers committed a penalty on the game-ending field goal block. Come on, man. Come on. Knock it off. You're not going to get anywhere with it. It's just stupidity. Anyway, so in case you didn't see the game, you don't know about this, you've been living under a rock, the Bears lost in heartbreaking fashion, this is according to Yahoo. And as the Packers blocked an attempt at a game-winning field goal as time expired at Soldier Field. And of course, just today, head coach Matt Eberflus told reporters that the Bears believe the Packers committed a penalty on the block and are filing a complaint with the NFL. And of course, coach has defended his decision to attempt the kick from 46 yards rather than use remaining time on the clock to try to make it a shorter distance. So here's actually what happened. They say the Bears took possession of the ball at their own 30 with 2:59 remaining in regulation while trailing the Packers 20-19. They executed a 42-yard drive to the Green Bay 28-yard line where Cairo Santos attempted a 46-yard field goal that would have won the game. And of course, Packers defenders got penetration up the middle, off the snap, and it was blocked to secure Green Bay's win. As a matter of fact, this was from their feed, and we're going to go ahead and play it as painful as it is. Let's see if it actually works here. Let's find out. Listen, folks, it's live. Anything could happen. That is painful to hear, but I have to give it up to their announcing staff in Green Bay because, well, let's face it, they won the game, period. I don't care how they won it, by hook or crook. Fact is, they won. But, of course, Matt Eberflus acknowledged that the Bears did a poor job of blocking, but believes that Green Bay made illegal contact with the long snapper. I'm not so sure how that one works, but then again, I mean, look, there are rules about that. But there's no way this guy's going to get any traction on this. It doesn't matter. They're not going to replay the down. They're not going to replay the kick. They're not going to replay the game. All they're going to do is let this one fester until, the last game of the year when these two teams meet again, but this time up in Green Bay. And, of course, Matt says, quote, "We had to be firmer inside for sure. And, again, we'll turn the play in because, obviously, they were on our long snapper. So we'll turn it in and see what the league says from there. But again, we've just got to be firmer in the execution," close quote. Whatever, man. You're not going to get any traction with this. And of course, when asked to clarify what he took issue with on the play, coach said, quote, "We saw him making direct contact with him right away," close quote. Yeah? So what's going to happen? Was the block kick a legal play? Per the NFL rules, a long snapper is considered a defenseless player at the time of the snap and is afforded extra protection. Per those rules, defenders are prohibited from, quote, "forcibly hitting the defenseless player head or neck area with the helmet, face mask, forearm, or shoulder," close quote. So, of course, Daly didn't get his head up before the two Packer defenders were on him, and TJ Slayton leaped over him and knocked him to the ground before Daly could get into an upright blocking position. Whether or not contact was illegal is subjective, and of course officials did not seem that a penalty was warranted. So nothing's going to happen to this. Okay, so you're going to complain about it. So keep complaining, nothing's going to come out of it. And Eberflus defends not attempting to gain extra yards. So of course, he goes right back to that because he's not going to get any traction with this argument. And of course, the Bears ran their last offensive play with 35 seconds remaining on the clock. They gained 2 yards on a run to the Green Bay 28 and opted not to run another offensive play despite having one timeout and 30 seconds remaining on the clock. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of behavior from the coach, or management, I should say, or lack thereof, may get this coach fired because right now he is on the hot seat. His team is underperforming. Yes, they don't really have much of an offensive line, but they're playing good enough to win games, but they're being mismanaged. Nonetheless, the Bears let the clock run down to 3 seconds, called their timeout to set up the field goal attempt, and Eberflus was asked about the decision once again the day after, defending it in the post-game news conference. And he says, quote, "I feel really good with running the ball there to get into the 28-yard line and taking the clock to 3 seconds and going for the game winner there," close quote. He also explained the downside risk that he considered in opting not to run another play. And he says, quote, "The obvious risk, you false start, you go backwards, you run an outside play, they call holding, you throw a pass, and it gets tipped," close quote. And of course, the Bears' loss was their 4th straight loss following that 4-2 start and moved the Bears further out of the playoff picture. And Matt Eberflus, again, is facing a round of difficult questions for why a once promising season has gone off the rails. And looking back at what the Bears' goal was in the first place in the season, look, they went and got the number 1 overall pick, and I still think he's a pretty good pick. Is he the best quarterback currently out of the rookie class? No. That would go to Jaden Daniels all day. And I would even argue that Drake May is playing better for the Patriots than we're seeing from Caleb Williams. The bigger question is who has a better line. We know that Jaden Daniels has a pretty good offensive line in front of him. Now, if you put that big offensive line in front of Caleb Williams, is he a different quarterback? Caleb seems to take a lot of sacks because he's not getting rid of the ball fast enough. And that old 3-second rule, got to get rid of it before 3 seconds, is not really applying so well to him because he's running around in the same way that Fields was running around in the backfield for the Bears for the prior 3 years. So is this an offensive line issue? Absolutely. Look back at the Dallas Cowboys when they drafted Troy Aikman. Now, Troy Aikman was a fairly decent quarterback coming out of UCLA. But when you look at Troy Aikman's progression, look, his first year, he was 1 win against 15 losses, sacked more than anybody else, and Troy Aikman really, really got punished. But then what did the Cowboys do? They built an offensive line in front of him that was so big, they could have protected anybody and anything. And, of course, Troy was big enough to see over the line, too, whereas Williams is not that big. However, you've got to protect your quarterback. So, what is the Bears' priority? At the trade deadline, maybe they should have been looking for offensive linemen, a couple of big tackles on the outsides, maybe a couple of big guards to protect the interior. Either way, Williams is running out of his protection. He's doing the same garbage that Fields did. He's running away from the protection, and this is going to get this guy injured. And the Bears gave up a lot on the Fields deal. They took their number 1 draft pick, and they picked up Caleb Williams. And so look at it this way. The Bears are all in on Caleb Williams. So they've got receivers in Keenan Allen, who's proving himself when he's healthy, of course. DJ Moore is a quality second guy, which actually they're saying he's the first guy, but I think he's the number 2 receiver. They've got Roma Dunze, a very good big wide receiver, rookie wide receiver. And they have what? They got one of the best tight ends in the game in Cole Kmet. The Bears have no excuse for not to produce. Oh, that's right. They don't have an offensive line. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 702
714-948-0100, 714-948-0100,
9935, or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
everybody. This is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio. That's AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, or recorded shows, which are a podcast. They can be found on Apple, Audible, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc., and so forth. Also, make sure that you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners as well. And plus the store. Yes, the sportscircus.com has a store where you can pick up all your favorite Christmas gifts coming up. And those would be hats, t-shirts, sweatpants, coats, fleece tops, bags, you name it, they're there. A shameless plug for the Sports Circus, if you know what I mean. And folks, lots of great products there, all embroidered, made in the USA products, and really good stuff. And people seem to like them, and gotta tell you, I like them too. Yes! All right. You know, the NFL sometimes it's a dicey place. And you ask yourself, kind of like with the Bears situation we mentioned in the last segment, what happens when a team loaded with talent can't seem to put it together? Do you blame the coach? Do you blame the players? Do you blame the system? Do you blame the owner? Do you blame the general manager? In that case, I guess that would be Jerry Jones's owner and general manager and president, whatever the hell. Anyway, we're not talking about the Cowboys. We're going to shift over to Cincinnati. And here's a team loaded with talent. And you wonder, what in the hell is going on with the Bengals? Is it the ownership? Probably not. Is it the general manager? Probably not. Is it the players? Probably not. Is it the system? Quite possibly yes. Is it the team management, or I guess you can call him the head coach? I'm going to guess it absolutely is the head coach. Nonetheless, looking at the Bengals and their disastrous play, you ask, what is it with this team? I mean, frustration is mounting in their locker room. I mean, even Jamar Chase starting to say some things. And honestly, I mean, the guy's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Joe Burrow's doing what he's supposed to be doing. The team's doing what they're supposed to be doing offensively. But what about defensively? It's kind of like watching a game of, they're just trying to, kind of like the old San Diego Chargers way back in the day with Dan Fouts to Kellen Winslow and all those guys. And they would score 50 and they would win 50-49. So Cincinnati seems to be in the same situation. They're scoring, I wouldn't say at will. I mean, they fell behind in their game and they never really recovered. They did recover, but they didn't. So they came back against the Chargers only to lose in a late score anyway. The fact is, Bengals star wide receiver Jamar Chase had enough of having to answer the same question after his team continues to lose in games in inexplicable fashion, according to pick your favorite news outlet. And of course, Chase also understands that until the Bengals start generating a different result on the field, he'll continue to be asked questions about why Cincinnati can't seem to finish a game. Well, he's not the one that's actually having a problem now, is it? It seems to be the defense. That's another discussion. Nonetheless, with their postseason hopes on the line, the Bengals came out flat on both sides of the ball in their game against the Chargers in Los Angeles. And of course, the team rallied in the second half and had two different chances to take the lead in the final minutes, but resorted back to the teams that they've been, and the plays that they've been calling all year, and couldn't finish again. It got garbage in, garbage out. I mean, it's disgusting. And now the Bengals enter their bye week with an abysmal 4-7 record. Let's face it, folks, even if they win out, they'll be 10-7. That's if they win out. This is a team that is a Super Bowl caliber team, as I see it. But then again, I don't know. I'm questioning a lot of what they're doing, and it's a little embarrassing. And of course, Jamar Chase was asked what's going on. How come they can't finish? And of course he said, quote, ask Zach. Ask the coaches. Don't ask me. That's not my job, close quote. And I don't blame him. Now, when reporters followed up to clarify Jamar Chase's comments as to why he feels like it's not his job, he brought up play calling. And he said, quote, I play football on the field. I don't call plays for us, you know? So I really can't do anything. Close quote. Actually, he said in the quotes, I can't really do anything, just so you, for clarification. Nonetheless, Jamar Chase is turning in his best professional season, and of course, as is Joe Burrow. And yet the Bengals would be on the outside looking in the playoffs if they started next week. And of course, they're both visibly frustrated, and their feelings are justified based on their consistent individual performance. Look, these guys are at the top of the game. Joe Burrow is at the top of all the quarterback stats. Jamar Chase is right there at the top of all the receiver stats. So you can't complain about these guys. Trey Hendrickson, Chase, and Burrow continue to be the only three players on the Bengals roster who consistently make impact week in and week out. They're holding up their end of the bargain, yet the Bengals still can't find a way to win games when they need it most. So for a season that started with Super Bowl expectations, it's quickly turning into one of the more disappointing and perplexing seasons in Bengals history. And I would even argue in the NFL history too. I mean, these guys are good, but they're only as good as the coaching and everything else. So you ask yourself, why are they underachieving? I don't know. But there's not just one reason why the Bengals have a losing record and yet have to beat a team with a winning record. So the blame doesn't stop with one specific player, coach, front office member, etc. The season has been a collective failure for everyone involved. But it's awfully hard to blame the quarterback, the number one receiver, for doing a lot of things wrong because they have single-handedly put their team in a position to win. It just seems that the Bengals defense can't hold it together. But above all, as the article reads, one theme sticks out more than any. The Bengals don't execute in crunch time. So, they say look no further than what took place with Evan McPherson in their last game. Despite a terrible performance in the first half, the Bengals 34-27 loss to the Chargers, the Bengals still had two chances to make and take the lead in the final minutes. And McPherson, who signed a 3-year extension with the Bengals recently, missed 2 field goals, one from 48, one from 51. Now this guy is good. Maybe just had a bad day. I don't know. You can't just pin everything on McPherson because a lot of things happen in the game. And let's face it, that game was 27-6 at the end of the first half. So you can't blame that on McPherson. Sometimes things happen. Nonetheless, they say, well, he's now made only 6 of his last 12 field goal attempts plus a 40-yard this year. All right, so when asked what he said to McPherson after missing the kicks, Burrow said nothing. Chase was also asked if he had any conversation with McPherson after the kicks. In typical fashion, he continued to answer brutally honest. Chase said, quote, he knows to make those kicks. That's why we pay him those bucks, to make those kicks in crunch time, close quote. And you know what? I'm okay with him saying that because that's a part of the team. And they win together and they lose together. But that's where the Bengals sit right now, lost and looking for answers. And it's why Chase or Burrow wasn't able to confidently say they believe this version of the Bengals can make it into the playoffs. It's just one heartbreaking loss after another. And even Chase said, honestly, I don't know, man. I have no clue when asked about making the playoffs. And so you look and you say, well, okay, let's just see where they're really at. Now, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of things happen in the NFL in the past week. And, of course, we look at the scoreboard and we say, all right, well, we saw, of course, unfortunately, it was the stupid Packers that beat the Bears 2019. And the Eagles beat Washington, a very good Washington team, 26-18. Detroit destroys Jacksonville at home, 52-7. Minnesota gets a road win, 23-13 at Tennessee. The Raiders played fairly well. They lose to Miami and Tua. Tua is back. Miami is going to be a very tough out in the playoffs. The Rams get a road win at New England, 28-22. Cleveland gets pounded by the Saints in New Orleans. They get off the schneid. They had a 7-game losing streak, so the Saints are back in the win column. The Colts with an unbelievable win in East Rutherford, 28-27 over the Jets. The Steelers just keep on winning, man. They find ways to win games. I don't know what it is. It's not like they're scoring a lot of touchdowns, but they are very well coached. 16 for Baltimore, 18 for Pittsburgh. Atlanta gets pounded by Denver in Denver, 38-6. Seattle shocks San Francisco 20-17. And of course, you had Kansas City losing at Buffalo 21-3. And so now, looking at these standings in the AFC East, it's Buffalo with a 5-game lead, actually a 4.5-game lead over Miami. Because remember, Tua didn't play for, I think, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever the heck it was, because he had that concussion issue again. But Buffalo at 9-2, with Miami at 4-6. So the Jets are an abysmal 3-8. They're out of it at this point, along with the Patriots at 3-8 too. In the AFC North, it's Pittsburgh 8-2 with a stout defense. They've only given up 162 points, which is second best to only the Chargers, who've given up 145 points this season. And they both played 10 games, by the way. Baltimore drops to second place by 2 games, actually by a game and a half. They're at 7-4 behind Pittsburgh. The Bengals, as we mentioned, 4-7. Cleveland in the toilet at 2-8. In the AFC South, it's the Houston Texans playing very good ball, still above 500, 6-4, and the Colts at 5-6. So I don't know. I mean, this would be a Houston winning the AFC South, but not by much. And of course, Tennessee and Jacksonville in the toilet. Kansas City in the West, 9-1. Chargers 7-3. Chargers actually didn't have a big losing effort from the outset. That's because they've got a good Jim Harbaugh as their head coach. And even the Denver Broncos at 6-5 are sort of a surprise with Sean Payton. They're playing very, very good over there. Sean's got him playing well. Harbaugh's got him playing well over in the NFC. In the East, Washington is now a game and a half behind Philadelphia. And in the North, it's Detroit up by 1. They're 9-1 versus Minnesota's 8-2. In the NFC North, Packers 7-3, Bears 4-6, NFC South, Atlanta 6-5. And you know what? That one is theirs anyway. They should win that one going away. But Tampa still has something to say about that. We'll see. And over in the NFC West, here's the shocker of all of them. It's the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, the Arizona Cardinals. That's right. At 6-4 in first place, 10 games into the season, nobody would have thought that. Nobody had them. The Rams at 5-5. The Seattle Seahawks at 5-5. And the San Francisco 49ers in last place at 5-5. I mean, that in itself, come on, folks. If you don't laugh at that, there's a real problem here. That's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.